welcome back to the show. And joining me now to give his sure to be stimulating take on Australia's rather alarming federal budget is Chief of Staff to Pauline Hanson and candidate for the Queensland state seat of Keppel, James Ashby. James, so delightful to have you here. How have you been lately?
Beautiful. And I'm glad to be out of the bubble, and I'm glad to be here in Yeppoon. Much better place, Daisy. You're welcome here anytime.
Well, I'd love to come and visit up there because it looks absolutely glorious. Now, needless to say, James, I'm guessing you're a little bit disappointed with Labor's federal budget?
Well, this is a big spending but very little outcome result for a lot of Australians. Look, yeah, there is the $300 credit that'll be applied to people's electricity bills, but no one seems to care because the actual cost of living will gobble that up very, very quickly in this state of Queensland in particular, but right across the country. I know that many people on the streets that I've spoken to since Tuesday night weren't even aware there was a budget, weren't even aware that there was any benefits from it. So I think for overall it's been a big failure for Labor so far.
Yes, nobody seems to be happy with it, and I've seen like economist after economist over the course of the week slamming it as inflationary, so it's not sitting that well. Now, Peter Dutton, opposition leader, he did his budget reply speech last night. I personally didn't think much of it, but maybe you have a different take. How do you think the budget reply speech was?
Look, Peter certainly has a better grasp on what the economy needs. Certainly from a coalition point of view, they're a better alternative to this current government. But I agree with you. There are many, many things lacking from Peter Dutton's opportunity here. I think the number one goal should have been a greater reduction in migration numbers. But also, too, there was nothing there to stimulate the apprenticeship schemes that One Nation have been vastly responsible for in previous governments. I know that we forced upon the coalition 2 incentives for businesses to get out there with apprenticeships. You know, here we are lacking a great deal of tradespeople across this country, and still the coalition and Labor think the best option here is to bring in people from overseas. It's the wrong option. Peter Dutton missed a very good opportunity there to dedicate a great deal of money towards homegrown training in all different trades. It's not just sparkies and brickies, but also plumbers and a raft of others. I think he also missed a great opportunity to suggest cutting red tape. I know, talking to a tiler in my house just yesterday, the red tape that's tying up so many of these people that want to move back into trades, he was suggesting that to go and get re-licensed was going to cost him another $4,000. He'd been out of the trade for a number of years working in the mining sector, wanted to come back, and these are the red tape issues that are stopping a lot of these people from entering back into trade. So, look, recognise prior learning's one thing, but if you're going to tie them up with these thousands and thousands of dollars to try and get back into their trade, it's just nonsense. And Peter Dutton missed a great opportunity there. We also haven't seen any money dedicated to real proper drought proofing, because let's face it, the only way to drought proof a nation is to build dams or weirs, and none of that has been seen by either Labor or the coalition. In fact, Labor decimated any plans that the coalition had left in place after they were booted out at the last election to actually continue with those dam building projects. Instead, nothing. So here we are, a growing population across this country. We're already at 27 million people. The only thing they're interested in building is desalination plants, which we know are very costly and not the most efficient way of delivering water to the masses of people around this country. So, yeah, real losses, I think, or missed opportunities from both Labor and the coalition this week.
I mean, like, I always think it would seem the most common sense thing in the world in a country like Australia, which does experience drought and also big periods of rain, to build dams to trap the rain for when the drought comes. But for, I don't know, for some reason they don't want to build dams. It's completely ridiculous. Now, look, we have to talk about Labor's quote-unquote tax cuts, which I just spent the bulk of my editorial talking about. Don't you think it is daylight robbery to sneak back that 37% tax bracket?
It is, and I remember when we first came to, One Nation first came back into the Parliament in 2016, this was something we worked for a very long time with the Coalition to bring in a tax standard that was fairer for all Australians, and a top tax bracket. Effectively, you could earn up to $200,000 a year and only pay 30 cents. That's gone under this Labor government. I strongly believe the Labor and Greens worked closely behind the scenes to just decimate what should have been given back to the Australian people. At the end of the day, no one knows how to spend their money better than those who earn it. The government are wasting so much money across this country. I picked out of the budget only this week that, here they are dedicating $26 million to HIV medication for non-Australian citizens who are here in this country. In other words, basically promoting unprotected sex when they come to Australia. So, there's wasteful things littered throughout this budget that we as Australians are all paying for. Of course, we're paying for high immigration, we're paying for high number of refugees being brought in, and that is why Labor have had to increase this sneaky tax of 37.5 cents in the dollar. It's unfair on those people that are working hard. Bracket creep's a massive issue that hasn't been addressed in this country. And even those people who are earning good money are saying they're under stress, financial stress, because interest rates have all gone up. The cost of sending their kids to schools has all gone up. And just running around 2 cars this day and age is very expensive.
Well, exactly. And I reckon that politicians really need to reassess how they think and talk about people earning certain amounts of money. I mean, Albanese was on television the other day talking about middle Australia while referring to people who earn $45,000 a year and under. I'm sorry. Nowadays, if you earn $45,000 a year, that's not middle class. That's poor, to use a harsh but true word. People earning under that amount of money, nowadays, they're really suffering, aren't they?
Well, there's no way you can save for a house deposit or even buy one of these new electric vehicles that the government are ramming down people's throats on a $45,000 a year salary. In fact, I'd imagine if you're earning $45,000, that's basically wages that you would earn from casual employment. And as we know, more and more people are working more than one job to try and keep their head above water. In fact, there's a bloke here in Yeppoon I ran into at another business in recent months, and I said to him, I didn't realise he worked here as well, because he works at a bottle shop, he works at a cafe, and I ran into him, he was working at the cinema. He said to me he's working 5 jobs, all casual jobs, but this is to keep his head above water and make sure that he's providing for his family. And we're punishing these people. These are the very people that Anthony Albanese is punishing, along with the Greens.
Exactly. The politicians need to really look at what they mean when they talk and think about people earning $45,000 a year and under, and also what they mean when they're talking about people who earn in the low hundreds of thousands. Because as I said in my editorial, earning in the low 6 figures a few years ago, that was a pretty cushy salary. Nowadays, you add, a mortgage and even one child into the mix. No, that money doesn't stretch at all. And what really irritated me about Peter Dutton's budget reply speech is he had nothing in it about the coalition's tax plan. Why, James, is there nothing about the coalition's tax plan to counter what's supposedly the centrepiece of Labor's budget, which is their ridiculous tax cuts?
Well, the issue that Peter Dutton faces here is he's got factional division within his own party. The coalition itself has issues between the National Party and the Liberals. Trying to keep them all on one page is a hard enough challenge. And then you've got the opposition that comes back from Labor, who would say, well, what cuts are you going to make if you're prepared to take money out of the revenue that the federal government receives? So this is the challenge, and he doesn't, I guess, want to get caught up in that. But instead of having the argument that people know how to better spend their money, Kerry Packer had that great debate in the Senate many, many, many years ago where he said, why should I pay you any more money? You don't know how to spend it appropriately. And he was dead smack bang on. And ever since that day, governments have never improved their way of standards in which they spend our money.
Oh, yeah, it is appalling, and it is so true. Nobody knows better how to spend their own money than they themselves. I mean, it makes me so angry. I do not think it is too much to ask for people who are, young professionals, just being able to keep just a little bit more of their own cash. We're not asking for government handouts. We just want to keep more of our own money. It's ridiculous. Now, James, I want to pivot to you. I love talking about you, and specifically your campaign for the seat of Keppel.
Yeah.
So in the midst of all this budget madness, what's the latest update? What's going on?
I think one of the biggest things that we've seen in this area here of Keppel is outrageous growth, and yet no additional spending or planning on infrastructure. So we've got roads that are desperately in need of upgrades, but more importantly, we've got a town which is just to the south of me called Emu Park. It's one of the most stunning, laid-back beachside communities, and I think people have cottoned onto this. It's had a rapid growth since the 2016 census to 2021 of 144% growth in families. And even in its childcare numbers, it's raised by 665%. They're huge numbers, and yet we don't have a high school. There's not even planned for a high school in this area. And so what's happening is these kids of today are having to jump on a bus and travel an hour either to Rockhampton or an hour to Yeppoon, and then do the same thing in the afternoons when they finish. So that's a big winner for a lot of families who have moved to the Capricorn Coast, to the southern end of it. They need a high school. And of course, there's a whole lot of other infrastructure planning that needs to be done. But Daisy, the other big issue that a lot of people have sort of raised with me is, well, why should we vote for a minor party instead of one of the two majors? And I consistently say to people, we've put runs on the board in a balance of power situation with one nation over two terms of government in the federal parliament. We've achieved significant funding outcomes for this region here, from local pools to sporting arenas and a hospice that we're opening on Monday the 20th, which, you know, it's the first and most northern hospice in Queensland. So we can achieve great outcomes as a minor party, as a crossbench party, but I think there's going to be a lot of say from crossbenchers, particularly Conservative ones, in an upcoming state election, and particularly in the next term of government, because I don't think either party are capable of winning government in their own right. So there's a lot to be said for voting for minor parties, especially sensible Conservative ones here.
Yes, exactly. It's very, very important to consider and vote for the minor parties because they keep the major parties accountable. James Ashby,
Sure do.
It is so delightful, as always, to have you on the Daisy Cousens Show. All the best with your campaign, and I'm sure we will see you again very soon.
Thanks, Daisy. Take care.